Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the secret origin story of AI. And trust me, it's probably not what you're thinking.
I mean, just think about it for a second. AI is everywhere. It's in the speech recognition on your phone. It's doing translations online. Apple, Google, Amazon, they've all woven this stuff so seamlessly into our lives, you barely even notice it anymore.
But where did it all come from? You know, if you're picturing some Silicon Valley garage in the last 10 years, well, you'd be off by about 2 decades and an entire continent. Yeah, the real story starts somewhere totally different.
To find the source, we got to jump in a time machine and go all the way back. I'm talking more than 30 years ago, to a research lab in Munich, Germany. Specifically, we're zoning in on this tiny window of time between 1990 and 1991. One of the scientists there actually called it an annus mirabilis, which is Latin for, you guessed it, a miraculous year.
Okay, so let's really dig into this. There's this one research paper that makes a pretty bold claim. It says that a ton of the basic ideas, the very foundations of the AI revolution we're living through right now, were all published in that single 12-month window.
But here's the kicker. The paper says, and I'm quoting here, back then, few people were interested. Can you believe that? These absolute game-changing ideas get published, and pretty much crickets. The world just kind of shrugged and moved on.
So let's fast forward about 25 years. Those same ideas that nobody cared about, well, they ended up being the engine behind neural networks running on over 3 billion devices. Yeah, 3 billion. Being used billions of times every single day. Talk about a sleeper hit, right?
So the question is, how do we get from a quiet lab in Munich all the way to the supercomputer in your pocket? Let's connect the dots. Okay, let's talk about the big one, ChatGPT. You know the T in GPT? It stands for transformer. Well, wouldn't you know it, the core architecture for that has its roots in something called the unnormalized linear transformer, which was published in, wait for it, 1991. See a pattern here? And it doesn't even stop there. The P in GPT, that stands for pre-training. That same 1991 research, it also laid out a method for unsupervised pre-training for deep neural nets. That's literally the technique that's essential for getting these huge AI models started. So you've got the T and the P, both born in that miraculous year.
This next one is wild. You know about deepfakes, right? Well, the tech behind them, called Generative Adversarial Networks, or GANs for short, is basically a duel between two AIs. One AI's job is to create the most convincing fakes it can, and the other AI's job is to get really good at spotting those fakes. And that whole concept? It came from an idea in 1990 called adversarial artificial curiosity. Two networks in a zero-sum game. Sounds exactly like what we're seeing today, doesn't it?
All right, let's keep going because we're about to get to what might be the single biggest breakthrough of all from this era. It's the one that solved a huge, huge problem that had researchers completely stumped. Okay, so the problem was called the vanishing gradient problem. A bit of a mouthful, but here's what it means in simple terms. AIs had terrible memories. When you tried to teach them, the learning signal would either just fizzle out to nothing or it would blow up. This meant the AI couldn't remember what happened at the beginning of a long sentence by the time it got to the end. And if you can't remember context, you can't really understand language.
So what was the fix? Well, coming out of 1991, we get this brand new revolutionary idea, long short-term memory, or LSTM. And it was brilliant. It was specifically designed to solve this memory problem, to let an AI actually hold on to important information for the long haul.
And this wasn't just some neat trick for the lab. Oh no, the impact was absolutely massive. In fact, Business Week later called it arguably the most commercial AI achievement. I mean, think about that. The most commercial achievement. That is a huge claim.
So what does that actually mean? Well, it means LSTM became the engine that drove so much of the tech we use every day. Google speech recognition, that was LSTM. Google Translate, LSTM. Amazon's Alexa, Apple's predictive text on your iPhone, even the very first large language models and tons of medical apps, all of it. All built on that foundation from 1991.
And if you want to understand the scale in dollars and cents, just look at this. By 2017, the 5 most valuable companies on the entire planet, we're talking Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and Facebook, were all building their empires on core products that depended on this AI. AI that had direct roots right back to that work from the early 90s.
Okay, so we've just unearthed this hidden history. So what? Why does any of this matter today? Well, this timeline really tells the story. Look at the dates. The core idea is born in 1991, but it takes until 2009, that's 18 years, before it even starts winning competitions. Then you jump to 2015 before Google uses it to completely change speech recognition on Android. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. It was a slow burn, a journey of more than 2 decades, from a research paper to changing the world.
And that's the real lesson here, isn't it? The story of this miraculous year is this amazing reminder that all the incredible AI stuff happening right now, it's all standing on the shoulders of this patient, fundamental research from a long, long time ago. It makes you realize that some obscure academic paper published today could be the seed for the technology that completely defines our world tomorrow.
Which, of course, leaves us with one last, really interesting question to think about. What quiet, miraculous year is happening right now? What research is being published that no one's paying attention to, but that in 30 years, in 2055, we'll all look back on as the beginning of everything?